Hello, everyone. I'm Hale Işıkgüler, and I have to say Dr. Tang did a great job in pronouncing my name. It's not that easy. I would also like to start off by thanking Dr. Tang and the rest of the Speaker Series team for extending this invitation to the DISCORE. So tonight, I'd like to first start off by maybe a little introduction into who we are and what we do. And then I'll leave the floor to our speakers, if that's okay. So we are the DISCORE, Discourse and Corpus research group. And we've actually been founded in 2019, and we're based in the Department of Foreign Language Education at METÜ, Middle East Technical University, Türkiye, Ankara to be exact. We bring together researchers who are interested in issues at the intersection of discourse, spoken and written interaction, and corpus research. We currently have 14 researchers active within the DISCORE group or affiliated with the DISCORE group. So the group is comprised of postdoctoral researchers, PhD students, MA students who either have been previous advisees or are current advisees of mine, and we also welcome visiting researchers. So what do we do? Like all research groups, other than working on joint projects, our group meets regularly in various other session modes. We too have a speaker series, which is public, the DISCORE Invited Speaker Series. Some recent sessions, in some recent sessions, we hosted Charlotte Taylor, Gavin Brooks, Robbie Love, Olcay Sert, Stephanie Schnur. You might notice that they're not all corpus linguists, and I will in a little while get why. We also have in-group events, such as reading and discussion meetings, where we have one member bring readings around a chosen theme. So, some of these readings are suggested by our members. And we also hold data analysis sessions. Well, we've actually borrowed this tradition from the CA tradition, but we've greatly expanded on it to meet our diverse needs. So in these data sessions, what we do is the group member, wants to present their data, brings in multimodal data, spoken data, written data, and then we collaboratively try to interpret and we see whether or not we, in the end, confirm the initial analysis that the group member has proposed. In terms of research concentrations, we're actually pretty diverse. Today, you will be getting an introduction into our corpus linguistics strand. So we have corpus linguists, we have multimodal conversation, analysts who work on anything from classroom to workplace to medical to call center interactions. We have critical discourse analysts and CADS people who work primarily on political discourse or mass or social media discourse. We also have a group of interactional sociolinguists and linguistic ethnographers whose work centers around, identity, power, and agency. We have people right now doing workplace ethnographies and linguistic ethnographies of migrant communities online, usually. We have another strand who's interested in sociopragmatics, in politeness and cross-cultural communication. And we also have people who are very much invested in queer and feminist linguistics. So very briefly, these are our members. You've already met me. Yasemin and Esranur are our conveners. They're our coordinators. So if you email the DISCORE email, you'll be actually, talk to them. Esranur and Hülya will in detail today. Yasemin works on the sociolinguistics of migration, things like, authentic membership and belonging in a digital community of returned migrant women. Özlem is the workplace ethnographer that I talked about, and she's interested in interactional leadership styles. Funda's work is about, more about sociopragmatics. And then we have a very strong, like I said, a CA existence. So people like Merve, Pınar, Betül, and Merve Hırçın, concentrating on institutional and non-institutional context with a micro-analytic lens, adopting a CA approach. Other people, other interests, anything from storytelling practices of lectures to narrations of failures and nothingness in career trajectories, Turkish queer communication, or, some other work like responses to femicide. So quite diverse, as you can see. Okay, so if you would like to keep up to date and take a look at our recent publications, a good place to go to is our website. This is just the last 2 years, so, a very general overview of recent publications. And lastly, please do follow us on Twitter, X now, right? We go by the name of the Discourse. And do email us at www.disco if you would like to become a part of our mailing list, especially for our speaker series sessions. Thank you. I hope I haven't taken up too much time. I guess now it's time for today's presenters. So first, we will be hearing from Dr. Esranur Efoğlu Özcan, who is actually a visiting research fellow at King's College, London right now. And she will be talking about her work on COTI, the Corpus of Turkish Youth Language. That will be followed by Dr. Hülya Mısır's presentation on SMIC, the first Turkish social media influencer corpus. And Hülya is currently at the University of Birmingham as a research fellow. And lastly, we have Pınar Turan, who will be speaking on behalf of the English Medium Instruction Corpus project team. And she will be getting into the nitty and the gritty of basically the process and our problematization of certain corpus methodologies. So without further ado, I will leave the floor to Dr. Özcan.
Thank you so much, Hocam. I will just quickly share my screen first. Let's see.
It's simulated.
See the screen okay? Does it work?
Yeah, it works fine.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Esranur Efoğlu Özcan. I'm a visiting researcher here at King's. I'm also one of the coordinators of this group. And today what I will share with you is an overview of my PhD project, that is deconstructing the corpus of Turkish youth language, which is COTI. In this presentation, I will briefly talk about the motivation behind conducting such a research, the data compilation and spoken corpus construction process. I will also talk about what is next with regard to this project at the very end. So when I'm using the term youth language, I am using it as an umbrella term to refer to linguistic practices of young speakers in a community across different modes of communication and settings. Youth itself is a very fuzzy concept, isn't it? So depending on your perspective, in a young speaker, the definition for a young speaker may change, whether it's from a more social perspective, historical, or political perspective. In this study, I am using biological age as my common denominator to define my speaker group, and I will elaborate on that in a minute. As you all know, the studies on youth language has roots in variation studies, and the research so far has provided us with linguistic evidence with regard to linguistic change, innovation, different linguistic patterns exclusive to this speaker groups. And now, for the last 20 years, we now have corpus tools to investigate. There have been a few youth talk corpora so far investigating youth talk, and the earliest one among them is called for English. But when we look at Turkish, the available corpora we have, we don't have the representation of USOC at all. So there have been calls for cross-linguistic corpus investigations for USOC. However, it is the research mainly focused on English, Spanish, German, and some Scandinavian languages so far. Turkish USOC has been quite invisible both in corpus linguistics and also in Turkish linguistic studies so far. So that's why I wanted to build a tool, a sustainable tool, to carry out this kind of research, both for my past PhD project, but also for my future studies of spoken interaction among young speakers of Turkish, and also for the use of wider research community. If you work on contemporary Turkish, it is the official language of Türkiye, and it is the dominant language that people use on daily basis to communicate in the country with each other. It's spoken by 90 million people as their first language.
Creative and SOV, that's quite unusual.
The age range I'm using to define youth is 15 to 24, and that is the statistics used in national demographics in the country, also by UNESCO. So within this age cohort, I will be specifically focusing on high schoolers. So, and when we look at the statistics, actually, it's a very huge population of speakers. Even like Eurostat reports that Turkey has the highest percentage of young population among all EU countries. It is a group of 13 million speakers. However, this research on youth language is very limited. And when you look at the literature, the deficit paradigm is still limited. So that's mainly because of lack of naturally occurring data and systematic data to base the discussions on. So the project, well, I designed this corpus initially to encompass various modes of interaction. However, the current version is a spoken corpus. I collected my data in 2 years, and just looking at the dates, you can guess, you can tell what happened around that time, why it took me so long to collect the data. I mainly used convenience and maximal variation sampling to collect my data, and this data is from naturally occurring and spontaneous speech in informal contexts between speakers of Turkish who are friends, who are high schoolers or recent graduates preparing for university entrance exams. So this is a very subgroup of youth cohort in Turkey. I use a contributory public participation model while working with my participants. This was a conscious choice to enhance the authenticity of data in my corpus. So basically, I was not present during data collection. My participants collected audio recordings themselves. They also reported metadata to me. They sent me back the data in encrypted formats. This model helped me to increase the authenticity of the data. Also, the process was less obtrusive in terms of collecting spoken data. That's very important for interactional analysis. Also, by using this, I established a relationship with my participants, which provided me an image perspective, which was very useful during both transcription, annotation, and also some analysis parts that I could get to ask them, contact them in terms of deciphering some unintelligible or unclear parts in the data. On your right-hand side, you see my workflow that I used to create this corpus. I used Esmeralda software to build the corpus, 3 tools of Esmeralda specifically. After I cleaned my data, I did my annotations, transcriptions, and time alignments. This is the screenshot of partiture editor. This is the part that I did my transcriptions. Basically, I had multiple annotation layers for transcribing the spoken corpus. The first layer was about speech management, and here I basically annotated like pauses, silences, utterance boundaries, corrections within the interaction, and I used fiat conventions to do that. The second layer consisted of paralinguistic features and also prosodic features. I based this framework on STC, Spoken Turkish Corpus framework. However, I expanded on it because my data of young speakers actually it was richer than STC's framework. So I had new features that were very frequent and I had to mark them, such as imitating crying, imitating laughter. These paralinguistic features were quite interesting in this data and newly added to the framework. And lastly, I also annotated some speech events, such as gossip, disagreement, and reenactment. This was a retrospective annotation. After forming the whole corpus, while I was doing my analysis, I went back and did some more annotation to mark the episodes of these speech events. And I basically formed some subcorpora under this main corpus for me to work on them later on for more interaction analysis. I will just keep, these are the list of my metadata basically, and of course I retrospectively for some of them. And this is how it looks in exact interface, how the corpus looks, how I ran queries. After the corpus was ready, I generated my word lists. I did concordance analysis, and it was very useful in terms of like seeing the intersection of several metadata with the context in this interface. It also brings you the context, expanded context, and of course you have the time alignment, so you can also hear the audio while doing your analysis. This is the current version of Corpus, very briefly. Speaker age is 14 to 18-year-old high schoolers. So it's a very underrepresented sample in terms of all studies we have. Dominant language is Turkish. However, we have some code mixing from other languages such as English, French, Russian, Japanese, but that's very, very limited. And that's the perfect reflection of sociolinguistic landscape these particular age groups are in Turkey, in Türkiye. My friends will talk about it in more detail later on. I have 123 unique speakers in this corpus. Their roles, their relationship is friends, and that's exclusively friends. So there was not a single speaker who was an adult in this interaction. The number of speaker groups were controlled actually. So I controlled that the groups would be only just 2 or 3 people, and that was a conscious choice to lessen the burden of transcription in terms of the frequent overlaps in use talk, because I was the only researcher carrying out this research. In the end, I transcribed 26 hours of interaction manually, and that gave me 168,000 tokens spoken corpus. Distribution of tokens to show you. So even though I had like balanced number of female and male speakers, in the end, my female speakers, they provided more data to me in this corpus. Authenticity of interaction is very important. So a few more remarks on this. As I said earlier, I used public participation model to increase it. I also used another measure of not guiding them in terms of the topics they're talking about in this corpus. So they are already friends, and in my metadata, I asked them the frequency of communication between them. And majority of speakers, they responded that they are communicating on a daily basis. So they are very close friends. They already have this shared knowledge among themselves. So it was kind of an easy process for me to ensure that they would be okay, not guided for the topics. And in return, it provided me a diverse spectrum of topics, ranging from more daily topics to more taboo or intimate topics such as mental health, issues of sexuality and such. Also, as expected, there is a frequent use of slang and swear words in this corpus. And lots of gossiping. So this is also another measure that tells me that the speakers were quite comfortable while they were doing their recordings. And it's important if you are collecting spoken data and you are interested in genuine interaction, authentic interaction between your speakers. After the structural and topical characteristics of the corpus, of course, I was interested in what was salient in terms of lexical characteristics in this corpus. I did my keyword analysis, in which my reference corpus was STC, Spoken Turkish Corpus. And that is the corpus for spoken Turkish of adults. The analysis provided me two main groups of keywords, basically. The first group was concepts related to daily life and education, which also reflects the dominant topics that I identified retrospectively in the data. And the other other group included function words, and I clustered them under interactional markers after following these discussions. That's the highly functional notion for spoken Turkish from a corpus linguistic perspective, because it encompasses different markers, both lexical and non-lexical devices, from a discursive and relational perspective. So this was in line with what I was researching in this data. And after that, I checked the concordance lines for these keywords, and I identified the dominant functions under these interactional markers. And I was able to group them into four subcategories, which were response tokens, which consisted of non-lexical and lexical tokens, nominal vocatives, web category markers, and intensifiers. This is just a hypothetical exchange between two young Turkish speakers to show you what these tokens look like, basically. So here, for instance, bitik is a Turkish for a bit, and it's one of the most frequently used in intensifiers in this corpus among young speakers. And falan is the equivalent of and stuff, and that is the most frequently used, again, web category marker. Aynen is a response token, and kanka, dude, is a vocative. That could be the representative markers within each category. And I had this CAS approach to, after having my keywords as my entry points to data, I based on the literature, also on my emergent codes while I was doing the transcriptions, I identified all the types within each category. And for each category, I was interested in the most salient ones. I did my collocation analysis. Also, I focused on some of them, selected some of them based on this analysis to carry out the analysis with pragmatic, identifying the pragmatic functions or discursive functions of these tokens, which functions they played within the context. So, even though the dominant language, as I said earlier, was Turkish, we can still see some of the instances of code mixing in this data. And I will just, and that's especially from English, of course, I would like to share just one case in which speakers actually manipulate their linguistic resources with regard to web category markers. So in Turkish, we have this morphological rule called M reduplication. This is a form of reduplication process in which speakers repeat the word with replacing the first consonant with M, or attaching M if it starts with a vowel. So the word kalem means pencil in Turkish. So you replicate it, but just change the first consonant with an M. You get kalem malem, and that cluster means pencil or something like that. So you generate this general extender. And for instance, with ish, that starts with a vowel, right? So you just attach an M, ishmish, and that is verb or something like that. And in this corpus, even though English was very limited, speakers applied this Turkish specific morphological rule to English words to generate some general extenders. This is just one example to quickly show you how it's worked. This is an interaction between three male speakers, and they are talking about video games. Here in line 6, speaker forms M reduplication by repeating English word updates with adding the consonant M to it. As a result, we have cluster updates, which is updates and stuff that's generated in which this lexical item update is the orthographic representation, of course, for the duplicated form of updates. This use of creating general extenders is a case exemplifying the nature of youth language in which speakers utilize multiple linguistic resources that they have. I'm planning to expand the scope of Corpus by collecting data from older age groups, like undergrads, and I'm expecting to see more this kind of plays and manipulations of language in that kind of research. So all in all, I compare this corpus as a source of data, but also as a tool of analysis to first define the linguistic characteristics of Turkish youth language. I was initially interested in the subcorpora that I showed you earlier, so gossip talk, for instance, or disagreements. However, just looking at the literature that we don't even have the baseline characteristics of this kind of interaction, this led me to carry out first this phase of analysis, then carry on the analysis with my first future projects. So in the future, I'm hoping to track linguistic and discursive trends by expanding the sites. After the anonymization of audio recordings, I am hoping to make data accessible to wider research community as well. Also, one other observation in data was that there is this mix of intertwined nature of online and offline linguistic practices, especially within the subcorpora of while they were gossiping or they were reenacting some scenes. So speakers in this corpus already manipulated some semiotic resources which were available both in their immediate physical context and also digital sphere while they were interacting with different interactional roles. So it tells me that meaning-making practices of use transcends the modes of communication employed. So there are many interesting examples even in this small set of data. And my colleague Julia will actually, in a minute, tell you more about how young adults of Turkish, manipulate like different linguistic resources in digital communication, mediated communication. That's all from me. Thank you for your time. Reach me out via my email or X. And floor is Julia's, actually.
Thank you very much, Esra. I'll share my screen now. Taking some time, sorry. Great. Could you confirm if you see my slides now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you. I also would like to thank the ECS team for inviting us. Oh, sorry. My name is Julia Musser. I'm a visiting research fellow at the School of English Drama and Creative Studies at the University of Birmingham, not very far from you. Today, as a part of my PhD project I completed last year, I will talk about the social media influencer corpus and influencing language. So overall, I'll introduce vlogs and vlogging and influencers, and then I'll talk about a concept called translanguaging very briefly, and then majorly I'll talk about building this social media influencer corpus, and then hopefully in the remaining time I will have some analysis to show you so that you can have a better idea about what the corpus includes. So vlog is an audiovisual form of blogging, which is conventionalized on YouTube. And this is a video-based content generation practice that enables ordinary people as well as celebrity figures to upload, title, tag, and share video stories. And vloggers share their personal experiences and mundane or landmark life events directly in front of a camera in mostly a documentary form. And they collect Afterwards, they collect views, likes, and comments, which is the interactional component of vlogging. And then the content may range from shopping, makeup, or decluttering, or taking a trip, to, depending on the vlogger's niche area to document. So this means there are various types of vlogs, such as lifestyle or beauty vlogs, or travel or fashion vlogs. And the most popular one was reported to be beauty vlogs. And beauty vloggers especially have millions of followers and a significant number of people online accessing these contents in many different languages. So, oops. There we go. In parallel to this increased interest among the public, obviously there has been an increased interest in social media research across disciplines. For example, marketing research looked into parasocial interaction, emotional attachment, and brand attitude. Anthropologists such as Lange looked into how renting helps construct an emotional public sphere. And cultural studies mainly focused on community building. And Lee 2021 is a good example of that. So in these studies, vlogging was described as user created content, or a self-mediated quasi-interaction. And for example, Dynald underlines the interactional patterns, for example, one-to-many interaction, many-to-many, or many-to-one to the vlogger. In vlogging, and this creates the mass-mediated monologue performances. And these speeches are often non-scripted and non-institutionalized monologues, and they're mostly in conversational forms, and they're addressing an imagined audience. So with the incremental growth of digital content created, we have witnessed a rise of a new online profession. And many of them actually, but one of the most prominent online professions is social media influencers. And social media influencers rely on vlogging to create communities of followers, obtain valuable sponsorships, and maintain or increase their public profiles and incomes. So they're regarded as trusted tastemakers, especially macro influencers, those who have millions of followers, and they have a power over large audiences from not so diverse age groups. Actually, mostly their audience is teens, people in their 20s or maybe early 30s, like themselves. So this profile becomes the targeted group. Therefore, this medium, I think, is a good place to explore and investigate youth language as well, or contemporary language use in digital world. And my research that you're going to hear was based in Türkiye, where the national and official language is Turkish. And Esra mentioned a bit about Turkish language, so I'm not going to go to that much. So for me, looking at this socially networked communication area was interesting, because I found most Turkish influencers use use of language consisted of many instances of a phenomena called translanguaging. So those of you who are familiar with translanguaging, this is going to be a very conventional way of introducing what it is. For those who are not, translanguaging was first coined in Welsh to refer to a pedagogy that encouraged the use of two languages. In that case, it was Welsh and English, which mainly promoted the acquisition of Welsh in the idea that this would produce balanced bilingualism. But of course, the translanguaging scholarship went ahead, and scholars have now various ways of conceptualizing translanguaging, and across disciplines it takes different turns as well. For example, here I have these definitions, which I find very conceptually correct to reflect what translanguaging is. And they include concepts like repertoire, which is an integrated system of seeing languages, or they have reference to transcending boundaries between named languages, language varieties, and language and other semiotic systems, which is going to be important for my corpus. And then I think this inspires a more social perspective than the long-standing code-switching scholarship. So in education, it has been discussed as a pedagogical philosophy and in important topics such as bilingual education, diversity at school, or academic performances of immigrants, or purism ideologies. They were all studied with attention. And then translanguaging extends to other areas of academia than education, for example, music, landscape studies, or visual arts and literary arts. So it becomes a social linguistic insight, and we can argue that actual language used and people's perception of it do not always correspond with the distinct national, quote unquote, national languages we conventionally identify. So it has become a theory, but also a method and an approach to language and languaging. So for me as a linguist, it's an analytical tool and a perspective to understand 21st century language practices in the world. But in this case, it's an online world. So for this online world, to investigate language and language characteristics of this contemporary Turkish language in online sphere, I took corpus linguistics as a method to approach translanguaging. So I'll show you my corpus and the processes whereby I built this corpus. The corpus was designed to identify and analyze non-standard language phenomena initially within various language context scenarios. It comprises transcriptions of publicly available vlogs from YouTube. There are 6 Turkish speakers, influencers, who are in their 20s and early 30s. The vlogs are aimed at an online audience and are characterized by natural speech patterns. And each influencer contributed 5 vlogs selected in reverse chronological order, just not to be picky. So the influencers were selected based on a specific criteria. For me, it was important to have a criteria to know what to include, especially in corpus building. So the criteria was that they were Turkish speakers, they resided in Turkey, or their profile said they were based in Turkey on YouTube, and they have a substantial following on Instagram and YouTube, because these are related in their cases. And then they have active content creation during my study, at least, and then they're publicly their profiles are publicly accessible. And as you can see, the content was largely similar as well, including makeup, fashion, and lifestyle. So for building a spoken corpus, an important consideration is transcribing, especially when you're low in labor. You don't have people or a team with you. So this is a small scale study. But of course, I considered auto captioning because YouTube provides that. But auto captioning appears to offer an exciting avenue for collecting extensive corpora, especially platforms like YouTube, which has repositories of video content. So you assume you can collect transcriptions from there and have a large corpus. But the practical utility of such data becomes dubious when confronted with the inevitable question of accuracy. So accuracy in auto-generated speech transcriptions, always a problem, especially about the suitability of these data sets for linguistic research. Of course, this is improving day by day. So what I've just said so far might be Middle Ages talk like tomorrow, but today I can only speak for Turkish and the automated speech recognition on YouTube, that the results were not really good enough. So the bold parts you see on the screen needed correction, which is a large proportion for this particular example. And then the points, if you look at them, are where there was unorthodox language used, language mixing, or slangs or anti-language like Lubunca, a secret language, in Istanbul, and then large number of proper nouns, including product name that you can expect from vloggers, influencers, who create makeup content, place names that they visit, on travel vlogs. So these were all, problematic areas that any speech recognition model would have problem today to catch. So these are areas that need accurate training, that I think. So to introduce the corpus compiling and the whole processes, this slide will cover key details about working with multimodal data using Elan, a nice software, a versatile software for transcribing and annotating data sets with simultaneous access to multimodal aspects. I began by importing videos into Elan and using a predefined template to maintain consistency across files with a standardized annotation tier schema. So this way I can practically use and ensure comparability during the analysis phase. So I actually also followed Turkish Spoken Corpus Project's transcription system, but I had to, as Esra did, I had to create a short manual for the decisions on translanguaging instances especially, and then new words and jargons, especially genre-related jargons. So they were unusual uses. I had to transcribe separately, differently from Turkish Spoken Corpus Project. And then using Elan's annotation mode, I established utterance boundaries, which we call segmentation here, and then defining where each utterance begins and ends. So, and then I can show you how the metadata looks like. You can expect, the metadata to look like lines of information here on Elan, apart from the captions and creators and URLs that you expect from YouTube data. I also added further information such as footage type, location, communicative functions from my further analysis that you're going to see a little. I won't talk too much about them, but they were analysis that went into the metadata later. And then this formula doesn't read emojis in the vlog captions, which is a pity. But then if you must include them, there is a relevant interpretation of these emojis to include, because sometimes they can be relevant to the interpretation of compositional elements of digital communication. And there are encoding systems to include that. I did not. But it can be very relevant for viewers, because for viewers, a vlog starts with the visual field on the YouTube interface. So they may be relevant to your analysis. Then establishing an ad hoc annotation schema is crucial, especially for analyzing vlog data, which combines both standard and non-standard texts and visual materials. Annotation categories were developed through a cyclical process, initially marking 5 vlogs, which was like around 70% of the data set, to identify translanguaging instances and create annotation schema. So additionally, features that are very conventional in vlog making, such as semiotic or visual use of modes, were annotated to enhance overall meaning making, because they become really relevant. And I would like to show you a very short video to show you why it becomes relevant.
Yabancılar geliyor. What song is that? Oh my god.
Bunu soran oldu bu
Evet,
arada.
bunu soran oldu. Yabancı bir kadın geliyor. What song is that? Ve hani it's not out yet.
So you can imagine it's not just Turkish or just verbal. So there needs to be ways to include these interactional components. And then to ensure reliability, another linguist annotated 10% of the data, which was 3 videos, to assess the tentative categories I built for translanguaging instances. And then I could check interpreter reliability, which exceeded 85% for each category. And this was also done in Elan. Sorry. Here we go. And then let me check my time. With the remaining time, I hope to show you at least one type of analysis. Although in my thesis, I also built a ground for what vlogging looks like. So it included the footage types, the setting or types of vlogs. And then I also analyzed the communicative functions of vlogging, which included confessional, informational, and instructional components, which then I post-tagged for further analysis to see the transcriptions, and they're available as well because this way I can see the linguistic characteristics of these functions. For example, I can go and check the density of proper nouns in informational context because they are giving more information to the viewer, and then I can check the verbal density or modality in instructional functions because they're describing the makeup or the preparation of food or similar occasions or events. But today, I want to show you the functions of translanguaging instances with the remaining time. So the findings showed that the vlogs consisted of around 17% of the total speech being translanguaging instances. And it's important to note that although this analysis adopts a degree of categorization, of course, for the practices and the modes and the media, to show how translanguaging looks like, this should be treated as a methodological scaffolding and inherently temporary, because translanguaging cannot really be categorized. It's a social linguistic concept, but I want to show you what it looks like on a corpus. So having said that, I would like to exemplify these categories a bit. This is a vlog that was captured in New York City. It features shop windows filled with cakes labeled in English, as you can see on the picture as well. The vlogger seamlessly integrates these objects into her monologue, blending Turkish suffixes like buttercreamli, farklı carrot cake'ler, bananalar. While using English words like carrot and chocolate, she's also integrating morphological derivations of Turkish. So, and you can see here, we also have that we can observe the infamous vowel harmony, which is a rule in Turkish, applied to English words as well, as Esra was also showing some examples of this. So also, I need to say that the translations are mine, by the way. So when I look at this, I remember Penny Cook and Otsuji's infamous work from 2014, which exemplifies these kind of urban talks. So this example also illustrates how linguistic resources and urban spaces intertwine, and it shows how spatial repertoires shape conversation. So this translingual example highlights the complexity of language mixing in urban environments, and it shows how codes and modes intersect in virtual spaces for the viewers worldwide. So that's why we need to explore how localized language practices are tied to space and activity, in which case vlogging, revealing not just language to language or language to person relations, but also dynamics of language within specific contexts. Another example is two vlogs. One is a makeup vlog and the other is decluttering, which is organizing drawers. And here you see other examples such as volume. Volume ihtiyacınız varsa, if you need volume, daha böyle kalın chubby fırçalar seçin, choose chubby brushes like this. So chubby fırça, in the next one is chubby stick or gloss or face gloss, but they all have the Turkish morphological suffixation. So these are what Batia calls beauty jargon. This has been, of course, widely used in this corpus. And these terms are also highly incorporated into mainstream beauty discourse. So using these words is an essential tool for achieving information-giving activity in such vlogs. In this case, digital lexis, where genres, concepts, and communicative resources or practices emerge from digital world, and mostly English-speaking countries. So you can see here speakers from Turkey as well. These influencers may consciously or unconsciously align themselves with the global digital lexicology to establish meaning rather than translating them or using them in Turkish. Hence, we observe the organic nature of the diffusion of lexical innovations in various forms as well. For example, like as a noun and then likelamak as a verb, or link as a noun and then linklemek to make to link or to like. Story atmak again, sharing a story atmak, or words like vlog and influencers, they are already born digital. So we can see here the morphosyntactic integration or loan translations, mostly phonetically. So these create a coherent message within the presence of genre-related linguistic repertoires. That's why they are not translated. And then interpreting was another resource to language, and it was the co-occurrences of language equivalents. In this case, you see plant-based, bitki temelli, as a way of describing what she was eating. And then this shows the interpreting activities that partake in the flow of translanguaging, especially the cases where interpreting occurs in the context of the source text. So she says plant-based, and then she says bitki temelli for the audience. Whereas in other cases, time and space-aligned subtitles, which become the semiotic resources that I also tagged, have been used. So subtitles were also significant for both maintaining the speaker's flow of translanguaging practice and also accommodating a voice outside the filmed space for the imagined audience to understand if they don't know the language being used. So finally, this is a snapshot of a young adult group's talk online, and I think they represent an influential public face, so their language use is important to analyze. And unlike on-site speeches, which have a limited audience, the vlogs, there's an imagined audience to direct your content. And if you look at the follower metrics online, as I did, millions of followers means this is a good area to explore linguistic resources of the contemporary speech context, especially via vlogs or other social media platforms, to create corpus to follow up the usage. And building a special social media corpus is not an easy task, I've shown, I hope, because it's complicated, where online speech can get messy, or sometimes machines cannot read it because codes spontaneously used at the lexicon or phrasal levels, or blends, as I've shown you with the creamly, banahanalar, won't be recognized accurately due to the morphosyntactic precision these kind of tasks require. And also, I hope to have shown you the digitally mediated language use and spontaneous translanguaging and code blending and these kind of interpreting in verbal and semiotic forms, which needs to be accounted for, can create the sphere to challenge linguistic peers and ideologies, because giving these speech contexts, I think firmly structural approaches to language needs to be revisited. And I think an additional contribution would be that my ad hoc categories can guide the researchers working with social media corpora to investigate speakers' usage and communication practices, because when I started, this looked very messy and I didn't even know how to transcribe this, how to account for these translanguaging instances, or where to look for, especially to categorize what they look like. So I think this kind of multimodality and multilingual communication can be quite challenging when you're creating a corpus. So looking at studies like this could help the researchers in the future, I hope. And this corpus is available, by the way, and I have different formats of output from Elan, which is accessible at the GitHub link I provided over there on the screen. And for now, it's just time-aligned interlinear texts, because I wanted to show you annotations as well. So I wanted to show the potential users the annotations as well, rather than just the lines of speech. And full details will be published probably next month in Research in Corpus Linguistics. And because I could not share much of the findings in detail, I will shamelessly refer to my study with my supervisor, Hale Işıkgüller, if you're interested in the real analysis in full detail. So references on vlogs or influencer culture or translanguaging for those who are interested could be, I think I can share this, this presentation for those who are interested. And thank you very much for, again, being here and present online and in the room. Thank you so much. I'll just stop sharing my screen. I hope I didn't cut too much. My internet was not great before. Perfect.
No, it was fine. It was fine, Hülya. Yes, and now the floor is Pınar's, I guess.
All right, I'm just sharing my screen quickly. Can you see the slideshow? And nothing but the slideshow?
Yes, nothing but the slideshow.
All right. So, hello everyone. My name is Pınar Turan. I'm a research assistant here at Metro Foreign Language Education Department and a DISCORE member. I'm in my PhD candidacy, all but dissertation stage. As the last part of the session, I'll be introducing the English medium instruction corpus. Sorry, the slideshow has just frozen. In non-Anglophone contexts, the use of English as the medium of instruction, especially in higher education, is booming. However, what research overgeneralizes as non-Anglophone is not a homogeneous cluster. It's rather messy. And that's why EMI is adopted the countries who are adopting EMI approaching it in their own senses, because EMI is adopted in countries who speak English as their second language, in those who speak it as their foreign language, countries with a colonial past and some without. And since the medium of instruction is very much dependent on these socio-cultural issues on, policy level, the scientific attempts are quite localized in their foci. I have a few examples over here. Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Europe and South Korea and Japan, etc. So despite such localization, researchers are understandably seeking a comparative equivalence between these contexts to understand what this policy really entails for each and every context. And the institution that is home for DISCORE, Middle East Technical University, is the first state university in Turkey to adopt EMI as its language policy. And as an applied linguist in Metroden, one naturally asks, what is the situation of EMI here in Turkey? And the response is, we know only a little about it yet, especially in terms of data-driven studies where researchers have looked at what is happening out there in the EMI classrooms. There is a dearth of research. And this is the case despite that EMI has been here for some time. As you can see from the foundation years, it's been here almost 70 years now. And why do I list these pioneering EMI institutions, both state and private? Because in our current research into EMI, we have partnered up with these institutions which are known for their good practice of their EMI because of their long-standing adoption of this policy. And you might also ask, why an expanding circle country where English has no official status has this long-standing background of EMI in higher education? And in fact, this report by British Council and TEPAV had asked the same question and summarized the responses around the efforts of internationalization, basically. So enabling access to research in English, enabling international publication, mobility of teaching staff, students, and finally attracting international students and teaching staff is among the driving goals of the institutions adopting EMI here. Now, as a phenomenon based on policy, EMI is a topic of debate in Turkey. However, these debates, as stated by Selvi, are not research-based. They are rather, armchair comments of taking sides, simply. So there is a gap in the debate in the shape of data on EMI classroom conduct. So if we have this gap, what can Corpus research offer to the debate? As explained by Jablonkay here in Jablonkay's piece, suggesting corpus-led explorations of EMI, language use and the linguistic demand on students and teachers in EMI contexts, that is explored through corpora, can be harvested into insights for higher education. For example, vocabulary load, lexical and syntactic complexity of the texts are, one of the many. And variations also, depending on contexts and disciplines, can be looked at. And interaction and discourse functions in texts can be looked at. And while, as I listed earlier, just a second ago, while Corpus clearly has such merit for both research and development, we can agree that compiling Corpus is a business that is financially demanding. You need people, above all, to collect data, you need transcribers, you need software, etc. And the situation in Turkey is that once you apply to a large enough funding scheme for your Corpus project, you don't get the grant, because Corpus is not considered a deliverable. It is seen as a mere data collection, let's say, and its research and development value is often unrecognized. So compared to the situation in UK, where it is considered a national success story here, you need to seek for alternative ways to be funded here in Turkey. And so we did. The project got funded at the end within one of the largest national funding schemes, Turkish Research Council's 1001 scheme, but we did so by offering a training for EMI faculty as a deliverable. For the project, we have been recording 180 hours of EMI classroom video data from 4 institutions to be analyzed through conversation analysis, collecting more than 1,000 questionnaire responses from EMI students, and conducting post-hoc stimulated recall interviews with EMI faculty. And all these data will help us create a data-driven, online, modular, in-service training course to be available to faculty members across Turkey. And in fact, all the existing faculty training modules for EMI, and there are quite a few actually, and not just in Turkey but elsewhere too, they are designed through top-down processes. So this study also responds to the need for a data-driven training informed by what happens in the EMI classroom. And now, while seeing this frame, you might be wondering, where is corpus linguistics in this proposed project? As metoemic team, we still had the aspiration for making this decent amount of data open to the corpus linguistic analyses, and that's why we decided to repurpose the 80-hour metadata into a corpus in more strict sense. And here are our project partners from all 4 institutions, led by Dr. Hale Işıkgüler herself. And while I'm here before you for presenting our work, there is a team of dedicated researchers behind this work, of course. The metoemic team, who are a part of the TÜBİTAK project, but also working on making the meto portion into a corpus, are here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we needed a fair amount of transcribers and researchers for processing the data, and we did so with 5 trainers training the rest of the team, nearly all of them being a DISCORE member who had experience in collecting and analyzing naturally occurring data and teaching and publication. So we had 23 trainees trained by these 5 trainers in collecting and transcribing and annotating data through the use of Transana multi-user app initially, and then with other applications.
Pinar, I think we didn't see one of your slides because it froze. I think
Oh,
the
sorry.
previous one
So,
probably.
yeah, this one?
I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. So you've seen the project partners, all right? And this is the project team, Meto EMIC team that I've been talking about. And so have you seen this training slide? All right. So as I suggested, 5 trainers trained 23 trainees with, 8 of them being PhD students, 3 being MA, and 12 being BA level students. Now, as you can see from the dates, we are still on the stages of data collection and transcription. We still have the annotation and building the interface ahead of us. So as an ongoing study that is on the stage of decision making about how to sort this data out so that it is a representative sample that is as comparable as possible with other corpora available and that is user friendly. We are also looking for your comments too. So at this point, while I'm going through the stages, I'll mostly point out the conundrums we are facing currently. So by saying a representative sample, I mean our endeavor to capture the complexity and variation in EMI. Variation how? In terms of format, we have face-to-face, online, and hybrid lessons. We have a diverse set of speech events, including lectures, seminar, but also active learning environments such as labs and studios. And also we have 25 departments categorized into a set of 6 larger disciplines. But categorizing naturally occurring data brings its own problems. If you take the case of food engineering, for example, in our data, we see that the program is offered under the Faculty of Engineering here in METÜ. However, the course we recorded, Food Product and Plant Design, looks something like this. So the scope of the course involves university students developing a marketable food product as a group, planning its production process, and marketing it through a tasting session with poster presentations. So this isn't your regular engineering lesson, the least to say. And the problem is, if we are to categorize it as engineering, we might end up steering the engineering data into an unrepresentative direction. And there is that problem, and this is just one example that we have among many, the least to say. And of course, we also have the issue of interoperability in transcribing EMIC corpus. The transcriptions were designed for a qualitative method initially, that is conversation analysis. And while both CA and CL are concerned with naturally occurring data, iterative language use, and they are both context sensitive and principled collections, their approaches to transcription created a challenge for us.
Najim, I think the slide hasn't passed.
Oh, again? Okay, so
the
sorry.
interoperability slide, I think we haven't seen.
So do you see it now?
I think we're zoomed
I've
out
changed it.
somehow.
Oh. Then,
Or is it just me? Is this everybody else? Sure.
oh,
It's also same for us, hocam, I guess.
let me just go back to
Yes, it works now.
something.
It works now.
How about now?
It's fine now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So their approaches to transcription was the challenge for us, and despite this, their differing approaches to transcripts, still both camps, conversation analysts and corpus linguists, seem to be dedicated to making it work. In this very series, not so long ago, Andrew Hardy discussed using ethnographic data as spoken corpus. And similarly, seasoned conversation analysts like Clayman and Heritage have also noted the synergistic payoffs, as they call, of quantifying the qualitative data. So it is challenging, but it is, acknowledged to have its merits. So that's why we decided that this merger might require 3 versions of transcripts available at the end. So this is what we have at the moment: human readable, multimodal CA transcription that is as detailed as possible. But it has manual line numbering because of the issues we faced in automated line numbering of the word processors. And it also includes lots of non-standardized tokens, such as these as hesitation markers. Then to us, first thing to do was clearing it into a plain text version, and then creating a machine-readable multimodal, a machine-readable annotated modest version of XML. As I mentioned earlier, compatibility between other, the EMIC and other corpora was also something that we were seeking. And that is why we looked at the British and American counterparts of academic spoken English corpora, English as a lingua franca in academic contexts, Corpus from the University of Finland, and the University of Bologna's IMIBO corpus. One thing that we noticed is the potential that EMIC offers first. So the newest data available among the corpora we saw, and it is proposing to be time aligned. And this is something that we couldn't find in the rest of the set, and compiled as very
again.
Really. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. So
We're seeing the transcribing EMIC slide right now.
So let me change it and go back. How does it look?
Measuring interactivity. That's what it reads.
Oh,
We see the implications now.
it will appear soon, I hope. Then if you're seeing that.
So sorry for the interruptions. I just wanted to
No,
make
no,
sure
no,
that
that's all
you're-
right, Hocam. I'm glad that you're telling now. So now you see you should see the table, the full table comparing the corpora. Okay, then I'm just
Yes, it's here.
oh okay. Sorry. So so as you can see from this table, one thing that we notice is the potential that EMIC offers, because the newest data available among the corpora where English is spoken as the second language, and it is also it's proposing to be time aligned, and this is something that we couldn't find in the none of it this set, and it is compiled as various speech type event types and as various disciplines as possible. And it also strives to be as openly accessible as possible by making the full set of audio and a partial set of video data available to users. Video set in particular makes EMIC a multimodal corpus. Asuman, who is a member of Metro EMIC team, who is not speaking right now, but among the audience, will be gesture tagging a subset of 10 hours of data for this purpose. And so the issue of comparability then, we faced with the stark differences, as you can see, in how these corporate approach disciplinary division and also interactivity. We will see that in a second. So comparability for us is still a question. So now you should see the interactivity slide, measuring interactivity. Is that right? Okay. So I'd like to here problematize the issue of interactivity a little bit more, because in research into classroom discourse, interactivity is a key notion for us. So for this purpose, interactivity is one of the biggest questions for us. And when we looked at the available corpora and how they approach interactivity, we saw that it is Weber's scale of interactivity as the most common way of calculating it. And it simply divides the word count to turn count, and if the result is lower than 10, the data is categorized as low interactive. And between 10 and 25, it is medium, and higher than 25 is highly interactive. So we applied the same for our corpus. We took the lesson that we consider to be one of the most interactive, and we applied this formula. So surprisingly, we ended up with low interactiveness. And we asked, like, why did this happen? So we believe one problem is the categorization being based on fixed criteria on number of words per turn. As we are in a non-Anglophone context, the norm of interactivity for us is also probably might be different. And moreover, we have non-words such as hesitation markers in the transcription that are counted as words in this formula. And we have non-verbals such as nods of back channeling that are not counted as turns in this formula. As we are so involved in multimodal understanding of interaction, this is of course problematic for us because we count nodding as part of the interaction too, basically. And we moved on after this, you know, seeing to see the other ways of measuring interactivity and here, tutors, instructors, frequency of using personal pronoun involving chunks, personal pronoun involving, like we'll talk about, let me turn, I want to look, as, you know, the frequency of these in the instructor's talk is another way of, you know, measuring interactivity according to the literature. However, that too is not in line with our understanding of how an interactive lesson looks like. We are striving for a way to cover the ratio of attending students against those who are just physically present. So that is why this is still not an option for us. And finally, we've looked at other possible ways. And for example, in my case, they used participants or researcher perceptions and their statements to decide if a lecture was highly monologic, mostly monologic, mixed, mostly interactive, or highly interactive. But then this has been too criticized because of its vague descriptions. And I mean, while this is truly EMIC from participants' perspectives, the vagueness of this is still problematic for us too. And finally, in EMIBO, in the University of Bologna's EMI corpus, they looked at student lecturer turn ratio. Who is talking more? If the lecturer, then it's low interactive. If the student, it's high interactive. And while this is like, it seems more closer to our understanding, as I said earlier, the who are present and who are actively involved in interaction is a more of an indicator, we believe, than student lecture return ratio. Now, before taking more of your time, I'll just you know, share a bit about what we expect to find and what are the implications. So convergences and divergences among disciplines is something that we are, you know, we have already as researchers who are collecting data, we started to observe these things, ethnographically, but we're not pinpointing them yet. So we need corpus info for that. And we're also hoping for creating disciplinary word lists, because what we saw in the departments that the students who are in their departments are having hard time with the terminology of their profession. So this is what English for academic purposes studies also, suggesting creating disciplinary word lists. So we believe that the least we can do with a corpus is, create disciplinary word lists for individual departments. And also, we're hoping to find distinct linguistic, paralinguistic, and multimodal features of face-to-face, online, and hybrid lectures. And also, as you have seen already, the scope of DISCORE is, in terms of investigating discourse, it's big. So we're hoping to find the footprints of sociolinguistic phenomena in contemporary EMI classrooms. And for example, translanguaging is one of the most common that we have started to see in the data. And also, we're hoping to find the pedagogical strategies regarding EMI teacher talk, so that we can inform a learning module that we are hoping to create for EMI instructors. And I've noted down this DDL thing here. So data-driven learning is something that is derived from corpus linguistic research into more of an, applied corpus linguistics. And it's basically used for language teaching and learning purposes. But we thought that if we're creating this training and if we are creating this corpus, and if the instructors were, if we made the corpus available for them to search for, certain things, as in a concordancer, a simple one, then we could integrate this DDL approach into, teaching ways and means of EMI. And finally, these findings hopefully will inform EMI policy. And, this entails internationalization efforts, language learning and teaching and testing in higher education institutions. And we are, by making this corpus available, we are hoping to create a nexus for the growing field of EMI through our rigorously developed data-led insights for a diverse body of stakeholders, including practitioners and educational policymakers. And that will be all from me. And on behalf of Metro EMIC team, and as the last presenter on behalf of DISCORE, thank you very much for bearing with us. As this is an ongoing project, we are hoping to hear your suggestions and questions. They are truly more than welcome. Thank you.
Okay, wow. My first response to all of that. Thank you so much, Ala and the three speakers for your contributions. Excellent presentations. So interesting to see what you're getting up to. I don't care that we've overrun a little bit at all. People might have some questions, so I won't say very much. But what really impressed me is there's three presentations offer this bottom-up view into a peripheralized discourse to develop these more centralizing models. I thought there was something that stretched across that. I thought that was a really interesting commonality, particularly in terms of the scope in capturing linguistic creativity, reduplication, and translanguaging phenomena, socialist, those sort of footprints, also within the EMI context. And I was really impressed by the amount of technical prowess on show in terms of capturing spoken corpora. So, I'm really, really impressed with what I heard. I think it's, last